Cool. So, welcome everybody to Assembly. I think this is the fifth one now. And as I said before, this meeting is going to be different. I'm going to try to slow down, uh, and really, instead of covering a lot of things, we're only going to focus on one core thing today. And we're really going to focus and go really deep. And I started with this emoji here because this past week, maybe you guys noticed, I wasn't as active and present in Discord. And I just want to let you guys know if you ever see inactivity from me, it's usually inversely related to my productivity on Epoch Island. And one of the things that I was put on my personal goal this week, that I think most of you guys and girls here would appreciate is clarity on where we're going and how we're going to get there is the top on everybody's mind right now. And so whether you guys look at me as a leader or not, that's up to you to decide. But me as myself, I do feel like one of the primary things I need to do, and is on my shoulders, is to provide that clear vision and focus of where we're going and how we're going to get there. So I attempted to do a miniature sabbatical this week of just doing that. And so this presentation today is going to be sharing a few of the takeaways from that. And hopefully, it's going to be the most interactive meeting we've ever done. So I actually created some polls that we're going to be using throughout today's chat. I think how it's going to work is you guys are going to see a poll. We did a test run of this last night, me, Steve, and Umar. It's going to pop up on your Zoom, a poll. And so if you guys can be around either your mobile phone or your desktop and vote on that, and then I'm going to take results and then I'll share those in real time, what the votes come in. So again, we're going to be doing something a little different today. So these next two slides alone, I think, or three slides, will share what we're going to be focusing on today and why. So we've had our launch. We launched in Q4 of last year, and we've established some of these foundational things: the native currency of Epoch, a digital community of you guys on this call here. We've established some decentralized governance. That's great. I think it's a really solid start. And then at the opposite side of the spectrum, we have this huge, audacious, ambitious goal where, like, a network state, and maybe we want to acquire land and we want to get diplomatic recognition, and like it's a massive thing. It's never been done before. We've talked about it. So I think the biggest thing that we have missing right now is everything in the middle, if you will. Like, where in the line here is how are we connecting where we are today with where we're going? And we've been referencing this as the mid game. We've referenced this as a lot of different things, but this is really like we understand kind of like cool ambitions, but this is really like the how and the what. And so that's what today we're really going to focus on. What are the how and the what? So, um, my realization was we have these calls and they're great, and we are debating and we're still going to continue to debate on what should we build and for who. And so I realized that while these meetings are helpful, I made it a personal focus to just start reaching out to as many people as I could and asking them to get some feedback on like a one-on-one setting. So instead of guessing what people want or need, we just need to ask them. So actually, like Byron, I think you and a few other people, you guys got DMs from me this last week on Telegram. So I started by hitting up all the elders, both those that have been announced and not, 50 plus people, and asking them just for a one-on-one meeting. I also went to Twitter and Farcaster as well. I went to the Farcaster. I went to the network state Farcaster and just started DMing people. You have to like tip them to like send them a DM and just like, hey, I want to chat about network states and get some feedback. And so that's what I've really been doing. And so what you're about to see are um, this is I created this deck that you guys are looking at right now and started asking them these questions. What would you say is your current primary focus and goal in crypto? I really wanted to understand who I'm talking to, and what they're trying to achieve. What are the primary obstacles they face in reaching these goals? So really understanding them at an individual level. So rather than coming at them with a bunch of solutions or trying to pitch them on something, I think we really need to get our hands dirty and really, really understanding at a deep level the problems that we are aiming to solve. And another question I've been asking these people on these calls is based off of what you know of Epoch Island today, how would you describe it to a friend? So this has been a really telling thing is if I ask this, I've been getting different answers from different people. And then I ask this again at the end of the meeting, and I'm getting totally different answers. And so this has been a really insightful question. So we're not going to answer these questions one by one, but I mainly wanted to show you guys the personal one-on-one meetings I'm having that would encourage you guys to do as well with your friends and family of your inner circle. But that's just what I'm choosing to focus on. So up until now, this has been not interactive. This next slide, we're going to start getting into the polling and the interactiveness. But I just want to share with you guys one of the hardest things to do on a product interview. Uh, some of you might be familiar with that. You're just trying to learn how to best build your product is to like share something and then shut up. It's so hard for me, as you guys could tell, to like not try to give context, not try to fill in the gaps for them. Because when somebody lands on your website, you're not going to be there next to them to hold their hand on what they should and shouldn't know. So in these exercises, I've been giving a visual and then I might give some general prompt. I'm like, what immediate thoughts come to mind? What's confusing or uncertain? And what parts resonate or generate connection for you? So just some general things, but I try never to answer their questions. And through these series of open-ended product interviews, and also through chatting with the Moai Labs team. The next slide you're about to say is our best, most clear vision that Moai Labs specifically sees as the next steps forward for Epoch Island. So, in addition to me having a personal Zen week of trying to really understand my personal motivations and whys. We as Moai Labs had a real to real, a heart to heart, real conversation of who are we and what do we want to build? Because if we're going to be primary builders within Epoch Island, we want to take it in the direction that we are excited about. So let's get into it now. So the next thing that people have been seeing when I've been meeting with them is I'll show them this slide. There's been a series of three or four other slides that people have seen, and I'll just shut up and start to get a visual or get some thoughts on what people think. So you could do this on your own right now. Is you land on this. Imagine you were to see this right now, or even for the first time, and go through each of these, one by one, in your own time. I can share this deck later, but just to kind of read it out loud, and because we don't have the true time to, we're going to have a lot of Q&A today and interactive polls that we're about to do. We don't have time to go through each and every one of your opinions right now, but just to share, is the top green part says a network state for crypto natives. The second part here, which is of anything that you're going to see on this deck today, is going to be uh, the most different of anything that we've discussed previously within Epoch Island. And this is this idea of this on-chain Silicon Valley. And this shows that the subheader here is we are on a mission to build, launch, and own the largest decentralized economy ever created. So this, I think a lot of people, their first question is like, cool, but how does it work? Uh, and so this one, two, three process, um, we'll talk more in this meeting on how we came to this. But just to go through this one by one, we will circle back to this in a second. But basically, reserve a passport by pledging any amount of money to the Epoch Island Vision Fund. Um, Willie, just to let you know, I know you're working on the bonding curves and all that. We can still very much utilize some of those things in different ways. But for now, in this conversation today, um, we're going to assume that this would work as you can pledge any amount of money to the Epoch Island Vision Fund. This uh, specifically hits at one of the biggest takeaways is we have big visions and big goals, and we have builders in our group, but we don't have any of the resources. Doing the math, we literally have the funding of a single family home, and we're trying to create a country. So something has to give. Either we need to get more capital or we need to lower our ambitions. So first and foremost, raising capital so that we can build the things that we collectively want to build is a high priority. So once you're approved, your your pledge or your passport is approved, you can begin accessing the benefits, yield, and ownership of being an Epoch Island citizen. And then you can use your voice and influence to vote on the Epoch Island initiatives you want to see. So I've been teasing it. We're about to get into the immersive polls, but this is what we're going to focus on. What are these Epoch Island initiatives? So I'll skip this for a second. Citizens receive a growing list of active and potential benefits made possible through Epoch Island initiatives. You can see some categories here: access, capital, services, ownership, yield. And so, what we're about to do is I'm going to go through, there's 14 of them. I think I counted there's 14. And what I'm going to do is you're going to see a poll pop up on your screen. And the question that you're going to be asked is, if you see this benefit, how much would it increase the chances that you would want to join Epoch Island, make a pledge, get a passport, all of that? So we're all going to vote. I think it votes anonymously, so it's going to be anonymous vote, and then I'll be able to share the results with you. And so this is really really helpful feedback. So we're going to do some votes, and just let you know the things that you're about to see here are all over the place. There are some things that I don't think we should build. There's some things that I'm really excited I think we should build. But once we get to some collective sentiment and consensus of what we want to build next and first within Epoch Island, um, we can start focusing on that, all funneled through the product of the NFTs and the passports. So that's what we're doing now. So what you see on your screen here is it says Islander NFTs. Imagine if each passport, you could basically take your passport and for free go mint one of these. Up until now, we've been calling these elder NFTs. But imagine if you could make a pledge of a passport, and if you got approved, you could basically imagine going through OpenSea, finding your perfect uh, Islander Elder looking NFT. It's a 101 custom, all of that. If you could get this for making a pledge to Epoch Island, the question is, let's see if I can get the poll up now. All right, poll will go here, and this is 005. So these initiative numbers are random, so don't look too far into that. So I think you guys might have just saw, hopefully, something pop up on your screen. Initiative 005. So the question is, how much would Epoch Island Initiative 005, if we created this, increase your interest in acquiring a passport? And again, I think this is anonymous. There is no reason to hold back on your true opinions here. We will be going through again 14 of these, and they are varying levels of all over the place. Again, and then we're going to also open the door for you guys to suggest some initiatives. But this is just for us to get a guiding framework. So it's been 40 seconds now. I see a few votes still coming in. I'm
You
gonna
may
try
want
to
to
get
see
at.
if anybody didn't see the vote.
Say that again.
You may want to check and see if anyone on the call here didn't see the
Yeah,
vote
that's
pop
a
up in
that's
their
a
screen.
yeah, that's a good troubleshooting. Did anybody not see a vote option?
Raise
I
your hand
see
if you
Yusuf.
have problems.
Yusuf did not see. Hmm. So this is a native polling of Zoom. So I'm not really sure how to troubleshoot here. We do have at least 14 votes. So at least a majority of you guys have been able to vote and or are multitasking here. 12. Okay, we have 15 votes now. I apologize, Rosino, and those of you who cannot vote. Maybe in the chats you can put what you would have voted, and then we'll try to add to those as well. So um, okay, so what I'm going to do now is end the poll, and I'd love for you guys to think in your like, how do you think the results would look? And I think now I can share the results, and I think this will pop up again. So this was 40% said none or low, 40% said medium, and then 20% said high. So uh, seems to be a nice to have maybe, but 20%'s not too bad either. If 20% of people really, really would get increased, like that's not a bad lever to pull. So again, we're going to keep going through. And then, I wasn't going to do this, but Willie, because sorry, Will, I keep calling you out randomly like you're just next to me. But because Willie, you're not hosting the second half, we do have slightly more time. Does anybody want to make a comment, a brief 30-second comment on this, like, if you highly resonated for or against this, would anybody like to share why? They're like, why you really don't care about these NFTs or why you would care about these? Anybody at all?
Me?
Sure, go for it, Marco.
I just think this is table stakes. I don't think it's you're asking whether or not we should have it, or whether it would increase the value of the thing. I think it's more of a, would you call it a passport if it didn't have a picture kind of thing? It's like, if you're going to do a passport, then this is kind of the thing you're going to do anyway. So it shouldn't really have a big lever on the network state concept, because you're going to need some kind of sort of access pass citizenship proof thing. What else would you
Gotcha.
use, right?
Gotcha. So you feel so you're basically thinking this should be like if you go to a hotel, you expect your toilet paper to be there. This would be like,
Mhm.
hey, this is a given. Okay. Thanks for the
I,
feedback.
I
Yeah.
would go so far as to say I'd expect there to be a door on the
Yeah.
room.
Yeah. So it's really good feedback. So thanks for that, Marco. Yeah, it's I'll have to tell you, Marco, another time. I read this really interesting book recently about, do you guys remember those shows at night where they try to sell you on that really expensive knife that's like $300 and it like cuts through everything and they're like cutting meat and it's like 2 a.m. in the morning. It's like a product. And so the psychology is they'll show you this one knife for like $300 and then they say, wait, there's more. We'll also give you these 49 other knives included in your thing. Which is just it's a weird psychology thing. So yeah, I do, Marco, just generally agree like how you position this with like what's included, expected versus what's added on can greatly change the perceived value of these passports. So thanks for that, Marco. Just to mention at a technical level, Marco, these passports don't have to have an identity connected with them. I understand in the real world, you have a passport, you have a picture in it. I had to recently go get my picture attached to my passport when I got it renewed. So, all right, let's keep going here. I'll try to jump around and let different people speak differently. And again, just to reiterate, we're just getting started. So some of these don't click or resonate with you. You guys are about to see some very different ideas and things here, which is going to be fun. So let me start the next poll here while I get it going. And this is 036. Let me find that. And wait, stop sharing. Okay, maybe I have to close that. Okay, there we go. All right, so this is onboarding box. The vision here um, is the moment that you get a passport, within a few days, you would receive a very custom box of merch. Let's say you get a shirt, a hoodie, a hat, some stickers, um, I don't know. They do all types of cool fanny pack stuff, whatever it is. The details are not that. I don't want you guys to get too caught up in the details. Like, don't look too far into the one ETH minimum. Don't get too far into the proposed budget. This is just placeholder stuff. The general thing that you guys are voting for right now, if I can bring it back up, is yeah, just the idea of like if you could buy a passport and then within a few days you get a bunch of cool stuff in your mailbox, what on a low, medium, or high, would this increase your interest in acquiring a passport? All right, I do see we have about 14 votes, so give it 5 more seconds here to get your votes in. I see you guys changing votes in real time. Maybe my talking is swaying you guys. All right. I'm gonna end it. Okay. And then we will share. So we currently have a 44% low to none, 28% medium, and then a 28% high. I think that's a higher one than the NFTs. So that's pretty interesting. Physical stuff more than the digital, at least on the high end, was interesting to see. Um, would anybody like to give again, not expected if you don't have a strong opinion, but any strong opinions here on this? Go ahead, Ninchi.
Uh, Only one I have. This would lead or require like to be KYC, and
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know. So this is the only.
Yeah,
Uh,
Ninchi, just to clarify, we've done this in the past actually with Block Zero, and the basic process was like they had to join a Discord and they had to sign a message. It does get a little friction filled for sure. So this would be an off chain, and the person it wouldn't be required, of course, from Ninchi to if you don't want to do this, you don't have to do this. But I agree, a portion of people may not want to do this. Go ahead, Pax.
So this is another nice to have. If you look at it, people like Aave for the raves, but I also like it for what it does, and not just the swag. So I see down the line, this is something that we can do, and it might be very interesting and very cool. But I don't think people will jump into any kind of network state just because of this. This is kind of, I don't know. For me, it's a nice to have, and it's not particularly exciting as a sort of a bonus. Maybe if you can like start a swag shop, also that would be cool. Like for example, ENS has a swag shop that's also doable. But the point is, you want to have some more hard hitting stuff, something that's
Sure.
more on message with what
Sure.
Network Stick does. For now,
Yeah.
DAO can do this.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's try to get to a few of those. Marco, I do apologize. I'm gonna have to keep going here, but I'll try to circle back maybe at the end of the call. If you do remember your note, we can try to circle back as well. So let's go to again. I don't know how much to reiterate. These things will get increasingly quirky, if you will, and not things that we've already talked about or you guys have already seen. What you guys have seen until now are not new concepts at all, but I will launch this poll just to do it. So, so the poll should be live now, 002. Um, obviously we have a Discord today just to personally share my vision for this. I've talked to a few people and how hard it is to like connect with like-minded individuals in crypto. Um, Especially if you're like building a company, you need to recruit some new developers or new builders that are high quality, that have some like-minded thoughts. Um, our Discord is okay, but the vision for this is not just like a one-way Discord entry, but I guess you would imagine a Discord that's actually um, really organized in terms of like, all right, here's where you go to get builder or like recruit a co-founder. Here's where you go to recruit talent. Here's where you go to talk about DeFi primitives. Here's where you go to like pitch an idea. Here's where you go to like just make friends. And there could also be different levels of gating for like different communities that have it. So I just want to mention, um, maybe I'm pitching it a little too much, but just the idea that it wouldn't look like the Discord does today. It'd be very targeted and thoughtful, if you will. Maybe once a week, a certain group of people within Discord can have an office hours with one of the elders. So this is really a digital access kind of point to this part here. So I'm going to end the polls here. I see people still changing them. Hopefully, I'm not biasing it too much. Maybe I'll add my bias after after I end these polls. Sorry, guys. So this one had the highest high yet, which is 38% of a private Discord access, uh, 38% low to none, and then 25% medium. Oh, sorry, guys, I didn't share that. So you guys can see the results now. Interesting. I think in my interviews that I've done so far, well, speaking for myself and then Steve, so Steve and I had passes to proof, which was, it's not anywhere near the community it used to be, but these passes at one point in time were a high ticket item, and by having some filtering of the passes, it really, really, it's 90% of the reason I bought these proof passes, and it was just a Discord, but everybody in there I knew was a influential person potentially in the space, and it definitely justified me overspending on a proof pass. This was a year or two ago. Um, so now I'm going to ask for strong opinions here. Ninchi, go ahead.
More of a question, like
Yeah.
all those lines with proposed budget, and let's say in this one, 10K a month. What
Yeah.
does this mean in
Yeah,
practice?
yeah.
Or
I should have gone through
this
that
all?
first. Yeah, I should have gone through that first. Good question, Ninchi. So, every initiative has a proposer, and this would be basically the directly responsible individual for you own this. So the DAO can't be responsible for something. It has to be like there's no accountability. So every in initiative would have somebody like in this one I had someone labs. I just made that up. But we could have Ninchi, you say like Ninchi, you yourself obviously are closely connected to this one as you've been moderating. And then the budget would be basically how much you to take on this responsibility, how much you would require as the directly responsible individual to run this. I just made up 10K. This could be 50K if we want to get more robust, whatever it is. And then the approval rating is like, you'll see this in a few slides from now, but on the actual dashboard, people will be able to say yes or no in real time. And this would basically be, think of this like the snapshot 95% approval rating. So Ninchi, does that give you some insight? This is like information about it's like a bullet point information about the proposal.
Yes and no. Like, first of all, okay, if it's a matter of example, let it be. But like 10,000 USD per month, like to run the Discord, whatever it's capable to do, it's a lot. First feedback, and the second, how it would be sourced. All these, let's say, proposed budgets, where we be sourcing or taking from? Like, if we don't have like the treasury at the moment, and the passports will be just start building it. So how we would fund all those lines?
Yeah, so a few things here. I really let's just a quick reminder for myself and for you guys as well. Let's really try not to get caught up with any bit of the budget here. These were all just complete. Like this could say $1 or $1 million. This could be way over or underspending depending on the value that we're getting out of this. So first and foremost, please, as much as we can, try not to look at these numbers because that can sway. I don't want that to sway your intuition, your desire to have this. But um, your second primary question is one that I should just double click on for a second. We don't have the funding to do 90% of what you're about to see on this list today. But the model here is these things start to get unlocked as the Epoch Island Vision Fund grows in size. So if nobody is willing, like take away $10,000, let's just say this is 10,000 Epoch per month or whatever it is. We do have the ability to mint Epoch right now, right? And somebody can accept that if they would like to. So rather than like Ninchi again, we can't do all this stuff here, but what it's going to show is all of these things are basically pending us as islanders uh, coming together, acquiring capital in the Vision Fund, and then these things start to get unlocked. And so, as each of them get unlocked, the value of the passports will increase a little, and a little, and a little. So, we're going to have to start small, and we're going to have to start very strategically, like what is the first thing we are funding? But as like a snowball effect, and if we all are concentrated on recruiting people to get passports, get passports, get passports, our budget will start to grow and grow and grow exponentially up where we can fund more and more. So Ninchi, does that make sense? These are not things that this would have to like right now to you to make this, you would have to make a proposal on either Epoch tokens or some of the ETH that we raised during like ITO wave one. Like if you really wanted to do this on chain right now.
Sure, sure. Look, if it's a matter of example for now, more than fine. So
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Awesome.
Could we
Really
not
good
look at this
questions.
more like it's one of these we're planning like a startup plans, right? You have no money, but you got a great idea and you're breaking it all down. What do you got to get done first, second, third, fourth, fifth, based
Yeah.
on market analysis and everything else. And then we're going to go get the money. And when we go get the money, we're going to tell people, and this is what we're going to build and everything else. And this is how you get to getting the money is because you've actually figured out what it is you're going to build and you figured out what the people want.
I think that's very fair, and I think what excites me about what we're still only starting this now. I think we're only four in, but this shows you're going to see two columns on this. You're going to see active and then proposed. So active are like these are your active passport benefits, and then these are like pending or proposed. And what's really cool is I don't know if it's only going to be two passports get reserved or 200, but what we're incentivized to do, and we'll get to the pledging in a second, is we have a bunch of people who like they make a pledge that they are interested in seeing these things come to life. And then based off of that, we start to little by little focus on now we're really incentivized to do what people want to see built so that it increases the value of the passports so that we can then raise more money. It's a circle. Actually, I skipped past this, but maybe this is like kind of what I'm trying to get at here. Um, Capital generated from passports increase the resources of the Vision Fund, which allows us to support more initiatives and grow the GDP of the island. So it will be a snowball effect. We don't have a lot of capital, But if you guys are seeing the vision here as we are, I'm literally going to spend 90% of my time going and getting pledges from people just so that we can start building a network effect of capital infusion to the project. And if we can allow all islanders to participate in kind of that network effect of recruiting, getting passports, slowly but surely, we're going to create this passport that has like 15 benefits in it, and we'll keep adding more and more utility. So I'm gonna keep going. These are amazing questions that I think really help with the context of what we're trying to, or what I'm presenting here at least. Okay, so this one is again, you're in finance. Don't get caught up in you're in finance specifically. Um, But the concept here is we as Epoch Island can acquire DAOs. Right now, we probably can't acquire any DAO with our funding. But as we grow, we can essentially choose to acquire a DAO and its assets and whatever assets that involves, a treasury or smart contract, whatever it is. So this one is a weird. I expect the voting on this is going to be very difficult because it's such a hypothetical. But what you're voting on here, you should see a pop up now, is the idea of acquiring projects and DAOs. That's what you're voting on now, not Yearn Finance per se, but the idea of becoming this hungry hippo where you just keep like, you know, acquiring, and it's almost like a growth strategy, if you will, to
But the question
acquiring.
is,
Mhm.
will this increase your desire to become a citizen of this organization because it's going to go down this path and acquire these things,
Yeah, the
right?
question is, that's a good thing. Would you, as a would seeing that one of the goals, one of the proposals is to acquire another DAO, would that increase your chances of wanting a passport? Yes or no? And so the implications of that are, okay, that means that my passport is going to be backed by all these other assets and all these other DAOs. It means that we are now becoming uh, almost kind of like a private equity kind of thing where you like acquire other things. I don't know. I could be mis giving a wrong term there. But some people might like that. Some people just want to build, and some people might like the idea of like the DAO to eat all DAOs could be kind of like the one liner. And there's no wrong answer here. So the results on this are coming back really interesting. So I'm going to let it sit for another 10 seconds if you guys want, but really interested in the results here. Uh, Okay, we got 18 votes. I'm going to end the poll now. So we got 67% said high, 17% said low, 17%. I would have never guessed that, guys. It's like this is why meetings like today are super helpful. Um, I would have thought that you guys wouldn't find this interesting. I think it's pretty cool, but it's really cool to see the idea of this. You guys didn't get caught up in urine finance specifically, but you could acquire an NFT project. You can acquire IP rights to Pudgy Penguins. Not that Luca would ever do that, but you guys get the idea down the line. So would anybody, there were some strong opinions here. Would anybody like to share their strong opinion on why you voted? I'd love to hear some highs here if anybody can share what clicked or resonated with you about this.
If I
Uh-oh.
Breaking up.
I lost Marco. If not, we can keep going here. Let's keep going.
I can make a comment here real
Oh,
quick.
go ahead, David. David, I'm not sure if we've chatted yet. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for letting me speak here. It's the first time speaking. Um, I think the results of this poll kind of show that, at least in my opinion, everyone here is like a big thinker, right? And this project in general is like sort of a moonshot. Um, so yeah, I think when we're thinking about sort of the products and the sort of outcome we want from this, it's all very big thinking. And this is the first thing that really feels like something a nation would do is sort of like bring things under the umbrella of that nation. And I think, you just have to get the right type of coordination internally to do something like that. That's all.
David, that's so powerful. I think this is what you were trying to say. Well, you did say, but just to make sure I'm not putting words in your mouth, we are attracting people with big ideas. We can't promise those big ideas yet, but people knowing that they exist and that they're on our metaphorical roadmap, if we just get the funding, is I think the thing that we've been missing. It's like okay, we might do this, we might do this, we might do this, but now it's like here are the things that are actually here getting voted on today, and we can't afford it yet, but it allows us to have a 1 month roadmap of what we can afford today, the 1 year roadmap, and then the 10-year roadmap of doing these things. And so, David, I think that's kind of David, if I'm not speaking for you, is that kind of what you're going at? Is like having that it's worth you can grind through the hard short days if the long day if you know where you're climbing is going to be worth it. Is that kind of what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I think so. It's just yeah, being aligned with that long-term mission kind of just motivates you to get through that grind. Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe you could also put it down as everything we voted to on up to this one has been tactical. This is visionary.
Okay. Appreciate it. Pax, I see you had your hand up. My last comment I
Very,
want to say before
very
I hand it over.
quickly, I won't
Yeah, go.
ramble too
Go
much.
ahead.
So, point one, this is a great idea, but remember, if you're participating in a project or a protocol, whether it's just buying, outright buying a DAO, buying a share of a DAO, or just buying into a DAO, it doesn't matter. The point is, you are thinking where the collective needs to be stronger than the individual. So if we can create some kind of acquisition where people who are citizens have more value or more say in that project, then more value to that project or more say in the way it's run, then I think it makes sense, and this will be very attractive to people. And as what I would personally love to see is like you can just join 50 dollars if you want as a person, and people have done that. But what I would love to see is Epoch Island starting to acquire, or at least building a pipeline to acquire things that are not necessarily in the noosphere. So we are obviously mentioned buying land, but also just finding a way to finance like real world assets and more importantly, real world sort of impact, investment impacts in entrepreneurship, stuff like that. So somewhere between in a like starting from like a venture fund and moving towards like a civilization with goals of sort of public goods and something that's like a shared ideal. So this is like the vision. It's not a bad idea. I think it's a logical step, but the main point is focus on what a nation would do, which is acquire strategic assets, and that's it.
Thanks, Pax. I think my first takeaway there is like really hitting on this like acquiring just to acquire might not mean a lot, but if we can make it a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of outcome, that's a win where you acquire it and now uh, we didn't just get their assets, but we got their assets and something else that together made us uh, more powerful. Powerful is a strong word, but you get the idea. So I really appreciate that. And then Pax, I don't think you were trying to allude to this, but what thing you spawned in me is um, I use the word acquire here, but you said the word like bridge a gap between other projects. And so like with ATX DAO with Willie and Mason here, um, could we collectively like here's an example, like Willie, like it's 1 ETH right now to get into ATX DAO, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1 ETH
So
floor.
Willie, I'll throw this out there. I would bet if we could come out and buy 25 ATX DAO memberships, could we probably get 10% off? Like maybe.
It'd be up to the community.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
proposal.
but you get what I'm saying. They would that would maybe be something community would be open to.
That's what the
And so my
agents
my
bunch of
Well, to your point, it depends on the quality of who those 25 people are, I think. And if it's
sure.
super people, it's
Yeah.
like absolutely.
And,
If it's
and
this is a bunch
so
of weekends, like
yeah,
we already
I'm not proposing it, but mainly using you guys an example where if you have enough capital you have leverage in negotiations of cheaper prices for everybody. It's the unionization. I was just listening to a podcast about Shopify, and because Shopify is the second biggest commerce on the web and internet besides Amazon, they can negotiate prices down for against Visa. They can negotiate prices down against all of their vendors because they have this community, like this power network, if you will. So whether we acquire them or not, we could also have the passport get discounts to the other one, or even double as a at like it could double as a membership to other communities and other DAOs as well. So thanks for helping me connect some of those dots. My last thing I'll say before we move on that David inspired. Sam Altman says this a lot, and it really connected with me. Sometimes it's easier to build a hard startup than an easy startup. And I'm butchering that, but essentially, if you pitch something that's not that hard, it's also probably not that visionary or exciting. It's hard to recruit, it's hard to gain funding, it's hard to get people excited and get news to talk about you. But sometimes building the harder project can get you can be easier in a weird way. It's very weird psychology. All right, let's go to 195. Let me get the poll up. Okay. Healthcare insurance. So this one actually didn't come up until I had a product interview yesterday with a guy named Philip from Li-Fi, who's in our group, and I was talking with him, and I didn't even bring up healthcare insurance, but he brought it up. He hit the word a few times. I'm like, that wasn't even on my list, and I thought to myself, I was like, I don't have any healthcare insurance, and it kind of sucks. And again, this is not to say that we can or should fund this. That's a whole nother debate and conversation. Like how hard there's people trying to solve this problem already, but could we partner with somebody who already offers this? Like, I think Opolis, who's familiar with Opolis in here? Like, I think that they do some version of this collectiveness. We could buy Opolis. We don't have to do all the infrastructure. You buy the membership rights to what they offer collectively. Um, so the question again, what you're answering is, would if you could have health insurance, probably the people who don't have health insurance on this call are like yes, and probably the people who do have health insurance are like no. It's probably the results here. So I'm gonna give it 10 more seconds to get your votes in. I really do appreciate everybody who's voting. We got a really high turnout here, uh, percentage wise. I'm gonna end it now. Okay, so it came back 44% said low, 25% said medium, 31% said high. One thing that hasn't really been discussed here is like, although this looks like a 30, like a mediocre response or like an average response, what it's not saying is how much somebody would be willing to pay for the people who said high. Not all votes are created equal. Somebody who says high might be willing to pay 10 times the amount for a passport than some other things that was high. So just want to mention that's part of these polling is not very data. There's not a lot of data. It's very generalized, but it is one way to look at it. Anybody have a strong thought or opinion on this before I go to the next one?
I'd love to reframe this initiative because
Yeah.
when I read this, I think like this means how do we integrate into the existing healthcare insurance system
Mhm.
in some way? I'd rather like to reframe this as how can we build our own healthcare infrastructure? Because the current system is just so bad, like it just doesn't seem very, very useful. It seems expensive and not very helpful. But yeah, if we reframe this as building our own healthcare infrastructure or a way to get some sort of healthcare within, the Epoch Island nation, I think that would be much more interesting.
So you're talking about from the ground up, like our own doctors, our own hospitals, our own all that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So I see Pax as a hand up. I think it's a great point, David. I think how I look at this is like I think it's an and conversation. Like what do we start with today as like the low-hanging fruit to get something for ourselves? And then once what's the big picture like you just said? Yeah, I think you're focusing on the big vision ones, the exciting ones, which is like let's just create our own doctors in our own hospital, which is like fun to think about. You know what I mean? So I think both can be true, just a matter of on the timeline of Epoch Island. All right, Pax, go ahead.
Just like very quickly, why I think the results are all over the place, because healthcare is this is like of course, an international effort.
Oh yeah.
Healthcare is very different depending on where you live. Like if you live in, I don't know, Switzerland or France,
Not too bad at
healthcare
all.
is
Included.
pretty decent. If you
Yeah.
live in the US, you have one set of problems. If you live here in the ass end of Europe, then you have another set of problems. And it will be very beneficial for one category of people and not so beneficial for others. I think it's a long shot, but what I like is this idea that if you're a citizen, you start getting a way out, and this way out, I think, is the pitch. Like, if I join Epoch Island, I have an alternative somehow to just what I get as a citizen of my own country.
Mhm.
And or where I live. So I can get some kind of tangible benefit in the real world that I wouldn't otherwise have access to if I were just a member of a DAO. So that's what I see is very powerful. And I think it's something we can discuss in detail. I don't think, for example, it wouldn't make sense perhaps to have socialized health insurance, which is available for everyone. Although maybe it would. It's something that is a very political decision for us to decide.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go there right now, but you see what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will respond and be like, "Huh, this is very cool." Like, for example, like, what if there is relocation assistance? It's I was I don't know if I'm taking time away, but I'm very briefly.
No, it's good. It's good.
I was working with Giveth, which is an example of a great DAO. So they're an amazing DAO, and they work like clockwork. And one of the initiatives that was run by Giveth is Giveth has a lot of developers that were from Iran, and basically there was a relocation initiative because of the bad things, and it worked really well. Like eventually, like almost everyone, I think, actually not almost everyone, was relocated out of the country. And I'm not saying we should necessarily do that immediately, but it's an example of this tangible benefit that you get from being in a DAO. Of course, these were like core contributors, so it's a little different, but nonetheless, it is the approach, I think, is very interesting and tangible. It's like, if like it makes you feel like a citizen of and not just some online member that talks to other talking heads, which I think is very powerful.
I love it. Pax, you always get me hyped up. Byron, you put your hand down. I'm not sure if you want to talk, but I also saw Patrick. Go ahead, Patrick. I think you got some perspective here on some healthcare.
Yeah, I've worked in a couple different healthcare networks around the world, United States, South America, the UAE, all that stuff. And so I'm a little bit of experience on just different networks, but I'm actually gonna say that and if anybody's familiar with the Mondragon corporation or Mondragon ecosystem, they have their own network inside of their corporation of like doctors and everything. Like I'm not talking like oh this is your insurance. No, like they actually have like hospitals and stuff like that too sometimes. And so like I think honestly, in order to actually do this perfectly for Epoch Island, we've got to get to that point where we're much farther down the line to where we can actually create something that is very much almost linear to Mondragon, because Mondragon has the ability to have like bring in, let's in this case, I'm going to use the resemblance, like let's say we were bringing in doctors and and actual like systems and things like that inside of the island. And I don't think at this point having a true conversation of healthcare would mean that we would be kind of like outsourcing things, in which by doing that, I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for maybe some failed systems and everything. So I feel like that it should be a conversation that is very beneficial to have now, but should be a conversation that this is much more in the future, because
Sure.
I don't see an ecosystem for Epoch Island that can truly benefit us, where we quantitatively can support each member in a healthcare benefit, where the investment really gratifies the return on investment, if that makes any sense. Because I feel like
Sure.
we can put our efforts and our money and our time into other initiatives that can yield a bigger return than trying to create some sort of return in the healthcare industry. I think this is something we could talk about much farther along.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to think about, all of these things, they have a cost and it's a matter of opportunity cost. And so some things we're looking to make a return. Sometimes we're just making to look to make uh, provide a service that's a loss. It's a loss category. But regardless, it's interesting how we all. So Byron, you had your hand up for a long time. Did you have a quick comment before we go to the next
Yeah,
one
yeah.
here?
I didn't want to take up too much more time on this same subject here, but yeah, like Zach, one of our first calls there, I think I talked about how, like, as a digital nomad myself, I've been traveling around for a long time and living in lots of different countries. And
Yeah.
for sure, to like Patrick's point and David's point, like a long term, I think this is something that you need to kind of integrate. Like maybe once we have our own country and our own land and everything like that, but at least in the beginning, I do think there would be a lot of value in partnering with someone like Safety Wing, which is a company that I used like for many years, and they basically give you healthcare insurance like no matter what country you travel to. I think there could be a lot of value, like being a citizen of Epoch Island. We don't have a place to go. We're all living in different like countries right now. So like, but having like healthcare like wherever you go, like basically travel healthcare insurance, I think could add a lot of value to the passport. And then yeah, like long term, having like integrating that to make it more efficient, uh, I completely agree with.
Love it. Yeah, how cool would that be? Just like no matter where you're at, you're just like, where am I gonna go get my healthcare today? If it was that seamless, if only, right? All right, let's go to the next one. This is one of the ones that's been floated around for a while. Um, Legal protection, insurance. So Epoch Island to reserve. Again, don't get caught up in the percentages and all that. This is just the idea of a defense fund. If you are going to want to attract builders, uh, to make the economy go round, you can provide them jobs and opportunity, but you can also provide them legal protection. I think of this kind of the same way in a sense of like health insurance, where it's like it's an insurance, if you will. It's a utility that we may or may not have to use, but it is something that even if you're not building in the US has a long arm of that, it only takes one kind of legal to really tear somebody's down from a net worth perspective. So oh dang it, I thought I started this poll. So I see that this one has the same number as another one. So how am I gonna do this? Am I gonna have to rerun this? I guess I'll relaunch it. Uh, all right, so this one is legal protection insurance. Um, I'll allow about 30 seconds here to get the votes in. How much would Epoch Island Initiative 005 increase your interest in acquiring a passport? Low, medium, or high? All right. 5, 4, 3. It's fun to see you guys can't see it, but it's fun to see the live action results coming in. All right, one more second and closed. All right, so we've got 43%, 14%, and then 43% on the high. Pretty interesting results. Um, Trying to keep the pacing here. We've talked about this one a bit in previous meetings, so may or may not need to go, but just to reiterate, I personally think that this is the lowest hanging fruit of anything that we could do. It requires basically no development at all. And the way that you could propose this is to say, hey, for the top 1,000 passport holders, which is basically going to be everybody, um, we will allocate up to 1% of our supply as a commitment to, if anybody within these passport holders can show that they are facing unlawful litigation, that we will use up to 1% of our treasury to help assist them. It might cover all their expenses, maybe not right now, but this one should really looked at as like right now, it's like a potential helper, but we obviously don't have the huge funds to do it. But at an individual level, it's basically a union, if you will. Marco, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Yeah, okay. Um, this is a critical one. I agree with Steve. And this should have been everybody should have gone high on this one. If you think about what it means to be a state, its primary mission, the goal of a state, is to provide a collective legal structure under which the community operates and that is collectively defendable against other states. So there's going to be this internal sort of set of rules and regulations and whatnot that form the body of law that is the Epoch Island body of law. And there needs to be, almost by the very fact that this thing exists, a legal team of some kind or another. Maybe they're not full time yet or whatever, but there's a legal team whose job is to make sure that nobody is getting away with attacking Epoch Island or its citizens.
Yeah, Marco, I think other countries have, guns and weapons and all that. We don't have that. We don't even need that right now because we're not. So I think, Marco, I'm agreeing with you to say, what is a version of what this is for us? And it's like capital, hopeful protection of each other legally. That is what we could try to help with. So, Marco, thanks for driving that home. Patrick, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm kind of synonymous with Marco on this one. I feel like it was just kind of weird because I thought that's why we're here, kind of thing. Like, what was like part of the point of Epoch is kind of like just the dissatisfaction of how you were protected by your governing body, or the laws, or how you're protected by the laws that are supposed to protect you, and they're just not doing it. And so, in my opinion, I kind of feel like um, I think maybe there should be maybe there's some misinformation, not misinformation, but not so much clarity as to what this specific initiative is actually supposed to accomplish.
Yeah, like not presented properly. For example, somebody could have really caught up that this is only for builders and that they don't think they're a builder, so it doesn't help them. Or somebody could have saw that 2.5% of our treasury and they could have not been excited about this 2.5% because of there's a lot of reasons somebody could have saw this and like voted against it, but not be against the general idea of it. Go ahead,
I think
Patrick.
my mind is like maybe it should be understood that it's like going to expand beyond like corporate law or something like that. I think it's kind of part of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, let's go to the next one. So 22255, this trying to make sure I get clear with what we're actually voting on here. So the idea of this is as we have a on-chain Silicon Valley, we can create products and protocols that generate revenue for the DAO, for the treasury. And so this specific initiative is an example of like the stop getting wrecked, um, which is actually, I think a few of you on the call would be happy to know that this is actually uh, the DApp is live. We've already created this on a hidden URL. We'll share with you guys, but it's an example of do we want to fund initiatives that create DeFi, NFT, just crypto products and services, like at a high level? So before I open the poll, you're not necessarily voting on stopgettingwrecked.com, which is one of them. What I would like to open this poll at is like, are you generally excited about getting a passport um, where your passport, you are subsidizing basically the development of crypto DeFi products and services that hopefully generate revenue. There's a way that there's a reality that stopgettingwrecked.com loses money. There's a way that stopgettingwrecked.com makes millions of dollars. Like it's really unknown. So this question is going to be very difficult because it's hard to answer because it's like it depends on what the DeFi protocol is. It depends on what we're funding. But just for sake of trying
Could
to
we
do this,
generalize it?
yeah, how would you like to change the question? Go ahead.
I mean, the question I think is simply, do you believe that having the community build and operate commercial products is a good thing for the value of the passport? Would it
Yeah,
make you want the passport more? Because it's not just going to be necessarily specific DeFi protocols. It could be a whole
yeah,
bunch of stuff you could do, right?
yeah.
But it's all commercial in nature and it funds the treasury, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to put it. Like, do you generally support your passport subsidizing the building of products and services that generate revenue? Yeah, it's very difficult, but we're just trying to get a sentiment, a very generalized sentiment. For those of you who don't know, who haven't been around, you might already notice some parallels to Block Zero Labs from back in the day. And Umar actually, had the question. He's like, so what are the primary differences in this and Block Zero Labs when we attempted to basically create a venture studio? And I think our conclusion was there are some similarities, but the goal is actually not to, it's maybe that it just need to be executed in a better way. Checks and balances on what you build and what you don't build, KPIs so that you're headed in the right direction, easier ways for somebody to propose what they want to build and get funding for it. Like all of these things can be improved upon. All right, so I'm going to close the poll in 10 seconds. We have 12 votes. All other votes we've been getting up to 15 or 16. So, okay, votes coming in. Cool. So, pretty cool to see. I think this is the lowest low we've ever seen. So, uh, the high is obviously pretty high here, but I think the general consensus here is like there's some general intrigue. You guys love the idea of having a country that builds things. And I'm glad we got these results because like that's what Moai Labs is excited about is building a community of builders that like in the same way that if a country wants to increase their GDP, you need to attract companies, you need to attract entrepreneurs, you need to attract all of this. If we don't have this at our fundamentals, um, uh, it's going to be hard for Moai Labs to add as much value in the long run. Marco, I see you came unmuted. Did you want to
I
add?
was just going to say this is the most decisive vote we've had so far. Most of them
Yeah.
have been split or sort of whiffy-waffy. This one is definitely saying commercial products that benefit the community and the whole island is a thing that we want to do.
It's music to my ears. I'm glad to hear it. I'm sure Steve is glad to hear it as well. Because the DNA of at least Moai Labs is we just love to build. We love to build. Like we've said, like if we had to tell if what was on our wall right here, build cool stuff with cool people, like that's what gets us out of bed. So excited that you guys support this currently as well. Um, I'll have to find you two who said low. I got to see who you guys are. Just kidding. Okay, so let's go to this next one. So, how do we these things are so general and abstract sometimes. The idea here is you are supporting the development of a basically a liquidity pool that sends 5% yield revenue every single time that somebody swaps Epoch and USDC, 5% would go to passport holders. That's the general premise here. So you're basically funding the development of this one is very specific. The idea of funding a revenue generating. So the person who gets hurt in this would essentially be the trader. I'm just, the person who's speculating on the token, which is actually I was writing an article about this. It is kind of looking at this like an import export tariff. If you really think about it, like Epoch
It's
is our
tax.
yeah, it's a tax. It's our currency. Um, it's our asset. And if you want to come in and out of even though you're not actually becoming a citizen, which is again why I think passports are so powerful. Like you can like speculate out there outside of our borders. If you want to come in, you got to get a passport. But if you want to speculate out there and generate revenue for us, sure, go ahead. You know what I mean?
I
So
live in the Cayman Islands, and this is exactly how taxation works here. There's two taxes. Well, if you don't count property transfer tax, which is a one-off, but you have a tax on anything that is imported into the country, and you have a tax on converting the currency to and from the local currency.
yeah,
And the tax of converting the currency, you don't even see it. It's there, but you just don't see it.
yeah.
This would be, I'm imagining a similar thing. You would build in the tax into the exchange rate with Tether, or with Circle. No one's going to see it, and yet there's a revenue stream.
Yeah, it's I'm going to share with you guys the results now. It's actually even more Marco than our previous one. So this one has the seems like the most no-brainer yet. 79% said high, 14 medium, one person said low. I think we got a troll in our mix here. No, I'm just kidding. Everybody entitled to hear opinions. But yeah, this seems to be like one of the no-brainer things that we could implement that would keep the economy going.
Yeah, but it's
And
not going to do much for Moy Labs because it's already built.
yes and no. We'll have to talk about it another time. Something we'll talk about that later. But basically, we feel that the pool for this it can generate more. I'll put it this way: we're currently sharing 50% of the fees with Balancer, and so there is a way that we could get about where 100% of the revenue comes to the passport holders, and we would present and share how that would be done. So just how to amplify our current liquidity pool. Uh, okay. Um, yeah, I told you we were going to throw some things off the wall here. So let's look at this building of or funding of a Epoch documentary. So what you're kind of, if you vote like that, this would increase your chances of wanting a passport. You're kind of saying like, I think it's worthy of subsidizing, content creation, awareness, uh, whether it's through a documentary or not. There's many different ways to do this, but let me start the poll here. So, would it increase your chances of wanting to acquire a passport if if people use basically our vision fund to fund things like, yeah, content creation, documentary style stuff?
This is country marketing, effectively,
Yeah.
right?
This is definitely in the
Um,
marketing budget, subsidies, like not a revenue generator. Or not like an upfront revenue generator, but like a top
well,
of funnel.
we're definitely not going to be asking for tourism.
Well, that is actually interesting. Um, you could sell visas to Epoch Island for somebody to get limited access. Could be a tourism thing. I don't know if we want that, but that is a revenue source potential. Go ahead, Patrick.
So, what is it called? TV. That's almost called a TV show, but if you're familiar with Yes Theory, the YouTube channel,
Sounds familiar.
one of the main people on Yes Theory was basically sponsored because he was having a ton of passport issues. I'll have to send you I'll have to find the episode. He has an Egyptian passport and he had to miss out on a bunch of like the Yes Theory adventures to different countries where they did all this stuff or whatever. But um, essentially, the he was funded by a company that basically, I mean, I think they just gave him a discount really, but there was a company in the UAE that helped him go through all the legal processes of getting a passport. Maybe for the Cayman Islands, it might have been. It's some sort of a small island that basically had a lot. Gave him the ability to travel, openly, and so this was basically advertisement from that UAE company, um, that if you live in a country that gives you a lot of hardship and makes it very, very difficult for you to travel, um, that you can go to this company to get a passport to help open up your travel capabilities. And so there's a whole story about it. So really, Yes Theory does an amazing job doing the storytelling and everything behind it. So I feel like having a documentary very much like this, and kind of saying, we're looking to help unlock the potential unlock or at least relieve the potential hardships that a lot of people have within their residential countries. So I think something like this in this line could be some very, very good storytelling and
Yeah.
really point people in the right direction towards,
Yeah.
Passport of Epoch.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks, Patrick. You also gave me a breather to go to the restroom, so thanks for some filibustering for me. Um, but no, I think Patrick, like the people who would, you guys see the results now, 21% high, 43% net low. Like you really like for the documentary for me, Patrick, I think you have seen some really good ones that are really impactful. Like Balaji is actually creating a documentary, I think he said, for network states itself, just to build the movement. And I saw even a 15-minute clip I saw from those of you familiar with Jack Butcher, who created the NFTs value. I don't know, whatever it is. He has a 15-minute video that was created by Zora, and it was like his story, him talking, and it like really made me want to support him. And I think just like small, like high quality videos like that can be really powerful. All right, let's keep going here. Uh, Co-working access. So, um, how this is essentially supposed to lay it out is like your passport. You could use it to, yeah, go co-work. So instead of going to Starbucks, you could go somewhere else. There's two ways to do this. Either it could be done like we pre-purchase like co-working spaces that already exist. Like we get this amount of passes to WeWork, and then as a passport holder, it pays for it and it just doubles as that. Or again, the longer term vision would be how cool would it be to actually have our own hubs around the world that are co-working. It's like here in Austin, Willie showed it to me. It's called Kiritsu, and it's just a really amazing crypto specific co-working space. That's I would probably pay quite a bit if I was able to go there more. So yeah, just co-working access in general here. Let's
Yeah, well, that
launch
could
the
also
poll.
be considered to be consulates all around the world.
I have never used that word in my life, but through context clues, I understand it. Consulates.
That's a better term because in the comments I said embassy without all the legal elements, and I feel like consulate is on point for that too.
Consulates. Interesting. All right, so the voting is open now. Uh, Steve, I already know your vote here. Steve is not a social worker, literally and metaphorically.
I think it'd be kind of cool if there's small office spaces everywhere in the world, and you go in there, but you can only get in if you've got a passport for the country because they're all consular offices.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Try not to bias too much while the voting is open. All right, get your votes in. You got 10 more seconds. All right. So we had 54% low, 23% medium, 23% high. All right. All right. I told you we're gonna get pretty quirky. So I swear I was chatting about this one with Steve a few weeks ago, just as like a fun idea. And I actually booked a cruise with my wife and my mom at the end of the year. I've only been on one cruise in my life, but I'm going on it with a bunch of people that I don't know, except for my family. And I really enjoyed the cruise in the idea that it was a disconnect. I kind of got away from like my internet and phone. And so I thought how cool it would be as like a crypto specific cruise ship, if you will, or it didn't have to be crypto, but I think more like a conference cruise ship where everybody there is for a very specific purpose. And I threw this around, and then I saw like days later that like people were talking about this idea on Twitter, or maybe I'm sure it's not a new idea by any means, but I saw it circulating on Twitter. I think Gwarth and a few other crypto influencers were talking about this idea. I think a lot of them ironically kind of jabbing at how bad of an idea this is, and it very well could be a bad idea. But Marco, did you have something you wanted to jump in with?
I'm just saying this is just another option for, a land grab. If you've got a ship, and I'm talking about a ship here, not a boat, um, out in the middle of international waters, that counts as a country if you want it to.
Yeah, I have heard of a few people doing that. I think that's one that Pax was even talking about. Maybe that was a different story, but
Sealand
there,
with the oil rig.
yeah, so there's two ways to look at this one as you're voting. It could either be a cruise ship that, only Epoch Islanders can go on, so it goes out, once a few times a year, whatever, and it's only Epoch Islanders can be on it. Or what I think is even cooler is the idea of owning a cruise ship, owning the revenue. So it's more of an asset than it is like, so you own like, so think of like if Bankless or if Bology or if Vitalik, anybody wants to host, or Aave, a big DAO wants to host like a getaway. Um, if you could offer them a cruise, I don't know. I don't know if this would actually be in demand, but the idea would be you would keep the revenue generated. They would have, if you're not an islander, you would pay to get on this. So, um, 5 more seconds for some voting here. 3, 2. All right. We got 46% low, 23% medium, and 31% high. Oh, I forgot to share their results. Uh, so we're getting bigger and bigger here. We're getting a little further down the line. These next two are actually separated out. I guess I'll just share with you the next one so that we understand the difference between these. This one is private island access. So this would mean basically the full-on network state in the future. I have this thing and I can access this private island. And then the next one, I'm showing you these so you know which one you're voting for. This one is private island ownership. So this one would be like maybe I don't want to actually access it. I just want to own the underlying land and island. I want to have basically financial exposure to the island. This one is I literally actually want to go to an island. I want to go to a private island and only Epoch Islanders or can kind of go there.
Do both apply? Do both of these imply ownership? Like I know the second one does, but does this one imply that
This one does
Epoch Island
not
owns the island, but you
imply
can go visit it?
let's for the sake of making these unique, let's try to say this one does not apply to that. So this one would not imply ownership. It's just the idea of accessing.
So we would as a community we would have control of this island, but we don't own it, and we let
Yeah.
our people on, but no one else. And the other one is we
Uh,
actually own the island.
yeah. So this one is just access to getting there, no underlying ownership. Correct. So I open that poll. I'll leave that open for about 30 seconds now. So yeah, this is, I guess you could say this is like a timeshare. Is that the analogy here? It's like I get to visit there and not in this traditional timeshare is like I'm sure that has so many negative connotations timeshare.
Kidding.
But but this one would be like, yeah, year round you can kind of go there and only if you have the passport. It's like
But we would be as an entity, as a country, we wouldn't own the island. We would be renting it, I guess, or something from
yeah,
somebody, and
that's where
then
this
let
gets a
our
little
people on
muddy.
board.
Like in Marco, like in an ideal world, you would combine both of these, and maybe we should have just combined it for the question because it would be very hard to think about. Yeah, I guess that's what you'd have to do is like it's almost an amenity. It's a cost, right? Because we're renting the resort and then our islanders can go there. Uh, so yeah,
Well, the
it's just
upside to this one is you can move it every few months. You can
yeah,
pick a different resort, and then that becomes Epoch Island for a month or two, and then you
the
move it
pop-up
again.
countries.
Yeah.
Pop-up countries. Pretty cool concept. All right. 5 more seconds. We have 11 votes in. 3, 2, 1. All right. Very polarizing. Got 45% no, 9% medium, 45% high. Share those results. All right. And then this one is ownership. So just for sake of consistency, let's separate out this again. Let's just say that you like I'm trying to separate out like this doesn't have anything to do with like going to the island uh or living there or anything like that. It's we own an island and we can generate revenue with it as needed. This would be resorts or tourism, as you said before, or whatever. We own it, we can do whatever we want with it, keep all the trees, cut them down, whatever.
That's where
Um,
we keep our nuclear arsenal so that no one takes us over.
it's where we keep our private keys. Uh, Had to get that one out. All right, so poll is opened. We'll keep it open for the next 30 seconds.
I
This
feel
one
like this
kind
is
of dives.
synonymous with like the 5% tariff kind of thing. Like in a sense, like any usage or revenue generated and things like that. It's kind of, I mean, not necessarily synonymous, but in is linear to that 5% element.
As in like a revenue, like this is a true,
Yeah.
we're trying to make money from this. It's a yeah. I would agree with you. And the primary difference, the one we're looking at is 99,999 times harder than let's just add a little protocol fee into this
Yeah.
file.
Yeah.
But I think the general, this is under the bucket of, maybe this is really helping me, Patrick. Like we need to categorize these into, these are revenue generators and these are like amenities that cost us things. You know what I mean? It's like we're just doing this so that people buy passports. There's two, because those are two very different mindsets. Like I used to work at a sports complex. We would have amenities that were losses that we didn't make money on, but they would try to get people in the door. And then we'd have like all of the revenue generators as well. All right, 5 more seconds to vote here.
The downside for a network state of one of these things is that you now have a physical place to attack. Whereas until you do this, you're digital and much easier to defend yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting. In my interview yesterday, I had with a, a yeah, Philip, he said that this was a turn off to him because he thought of ownership as a liability, which was interesting. He doesn't want to own things.
Because
So,
it's assailable, right? It can be seized from you
mhm,
by anybody with a big enough gun.
yes. So, but regardless of the downsides, sounds like people are excited about some real world asset ownership here. We got 62% said high, 15% medium, and 23% low. All right. Thank you guys. We are almost through here. This is the last one. Um, wait, did I share that? Yeah, I already shared that. Okay. This one is going to be a really wonky question again. So basically what this is the idea of the vision fund. So I've been talking about this idea of a vision fund. So right now, all of our liquidity is in 80% Epoch, 20% ETH. And that's what kind of backs the liquidity providers. What this vision fund is basically, it's marketing terminology for our liquidity pool that underlines the value of the passports. So when you want to void or when you want to pledge to get into Epoch Island, you are pledging to the Vision Fund. When you want to exit Epoch Island, get rid of your passport, you are removing assets from the Vision Fund. So what this actually means is this is the um, index, if you will, that underpins the value of your passports. And we as islanders can choose the assortment of the assets. So if we want to have 50% Epoch, 25% RETH, 25% DAI, we could vote to do that. So that is what the Vision Fund is. It's marketing speak for a index liquidity pool. This currently would be looking at like Balancer, a managed pool for this. We're currently using a Balancer weighted pool, but this would be a Balancer managed pool that underpins. Any questions about this while people are voting to get clarity on this? Okay, we've got 9 votes. We'll wait for a few more votes here. 10 votes, 11 votes, 12 votes. All right. All right, we'll end it. So this one shows 62% said high, 23% low, and 15% medium. Interesting results. Okay, so thank you everybody for going through those. Uh, what I would like to take a pause for a second. I know your brains are probably getting pretty melted as well, but would anybody like to did anybody else have anything that came to mind that wants to think of an initiative that you would like to see on this list? So initiatives, how I define them, are something that you think increases it's a campaign, it's an initiative that you use to increase the GDP and value of the passport holders, essentially. Would anybody like to speak up and share one that's on their brain right now?
May I?
Yeah.
I didn't see anything in there for optimizing real-time full community participants in governance. I think that's a critical thing, that the citizenship of the state in a network state be much more engaged in the actual decision making rather than in proxy decision making a la US government model or Canadian government, British government, etc.
Mhm. So what would
Representative
be
democracy.
the initiative would be an initiative to build a infrastructure of with the goal to increase efficiency of voting. Yeah, can you like in a one or two sentence try to say like what the initiative would be called and be proposed?
Tinder.gov, for lack of a better way to put it. You need a governance tool that everybody can use, and they don't need a degree in poli sci to
Okay.
understand it.
So Marco, I'm
So
actually really excited to show you a screenshot in two slides from now that I really want to get your feedback because I think we're on the same page that you if we want to increase engagement, it needs to be like boom, boom, boom. Yeah, it needs to be so easy that
yeah,
anybody can do it. So I have a
exactly.
screenshot actually that I'm going to share here in a second. So that's a really good
Awesome.
point. Go ahead, Patrick.
Hereditary epoch citizenship for children.
Interesting.
I'm I'm very
You mean
loose
if
on
you're
the
born on Epoch Island, you get a citizenship?
I think as necessarily as founders kind of thing, founding islanders, not founders, but founding islanders. You know, I don't know how did that work when when the U.S. came in with the 13 colonies, and how did that work with their children, kind of thing. But and not necessarily born on Epoch Island. Honestly, I'm very loose on the idea, but I was
Yeah,
kind
just a
of open.
general concept. That's really
It's the
fascinating.
general
Okay.
concept of like what could it be, or what could it be in it for our children by being citizens, and maybe there should be like you've been a citizen for X amount of time,
Yeah.
or you've provided X amount of value. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just
There's a
going out.
million ways to no, that's fascinating. And Patrick, this is exactly like in the ideal world, you would own the initiative, you would request funding to do the R&D, research, create a proposal, and then set it in motion. So this is the perfect things of like what we would want to see over time, where it's not just Moai Labs, but people stepping up and doing stuff like that.
I think Patrick is assuming that it's like other citizenships where it's a pain to get another citizenship. Trust me, I've got three and they're hard. Um, to get through that whole process. But in the case of a network state, everybody's welcome. You can be kicked out for being a bad citizen, but otherwise everyone's welcome because there's no downside to increasing the population of this state. Does that
I
make
think,
sense?
yeah,
Yeah, I think there's go
I
ahead.
think in my case though, what I'm kind of saying is, um, our children turn 18 years old, something like that. And at that point, they can either receive or have some sort of onboarding process or maybe there's some sort of support in my death. How can Epoch Island support my children? Maybe they can help with some sort of like asset transference or something to that effect. I'm just kind of thinking of
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
in kind of just an open way.
Yeah.
It could be just simply your passport transferred to your children, or the assets transferred to your children. Maybe there's some sort of like will and testament support. I'm just kind of putting that out there.
Yeah, I love it, Patrick. It's very open. I think one of Steve's favorite projects is Safe Haven or something, where it's like deeds and leaving stuff to whoever. But actually, the next slide here, I think, is relevant. We're talking about basically like what is the onboarding process? Where do we draw the line of who is a passport holder, who is not? The last few weeks, we've looked at the extremes of both. We've looked at the extremes of open borders. Anybody can grab a passport holder. It's on a bonding curve. You're in and you're out. And then we looked at the opposite extreme, which was like everybody has to go through a filtered verification process of like who you are, what you're about. And so this next slide, I think we're going to show are kind of like a happy medium that we've kind of been exploring. But the last thing I'll share on this specific slide, if you will, for better or for worse, I think a lot of people will be getting passports. They want to know how much could this be worth? And so what we're playing around with this idea of this calculator where it shows you can adjust what you think like the GDP of Epoch Island is or the market cap or something of that, and it'll show you like what is the average passport value. So I think connecting those dots for people, it's not to say that this will go to this price or whatever it is, but I think we're working on a calculator to help people connect those dots because other like regular ERC20 fungible tokens, it's maybe a little easier to understand valuation. And I think what we're doing is so different that it might be hard for people to do that. Okay, so what we've been talking about up until now is amazing. I'm really, really, really happy with the polls that we've done, the feedback we've got. I think they're all saved. What I want to get into now are the actual UI of what a Islander passport. All this we said, what does it look like when somebody's like, I want to join Epoch Island? What does it actually look like? So this is not anywhere finalized, but it's just like a theoretical example of what us Moai Labs would love to build. So basically, for you to get a passport, what we're looking at, we think is a happy medium here between filtering but still allowing a process in. So you can basically to join the passport wait list, you make a pledge of any amount to the Vision Fund. And so a few critical things here. You'll see on the left here, I entered a person who invited me. I entered how much I want to pledge. I'm not sure if you can zoom in on this. Okay, I can. How much I want to pledge. And then like in real time, I'm seeing all these other people making pledges, which is going to add some social proof here. You can click make the pledge, and then you can also in the future increase your pledge or even remove your pledge. So reading the rules here, at any point in time, you can remove your pledge with a 0% penalty. The more you pledge, the higher you are on the wait list. The more you pledge, the greater your ownership of the Vision Fund. Every week you're on the wait list, you earn new pledge points. Uh, we can call those something different because I know there's lots of connotations these days with points, but it's definitely not an airdrop. So don't get confused with that. Um, Once approved, you can optionally convert your pledge into a passport. So what you're seeing here is there's kind of a two-step. You pledge, get on the wait list, and then you have to get approved. Once you're eligible to be approved, you then can convert your pledge into a passport. Um, I could spend a whole hour explaining how we came to this system, the pros, the cons. There are pros, there are cons, all the trade-offs. But bear with me for now. We've thought very, very deeply, many hours going into this, and would love to. I'd be happy to share with that in the coming meetings that we have. But basically, these passport holders then receive a growing list of perks and benefits, which we just talked about. So this is the pledge page. Once you hit pledge, it says your pledge of 10 ETH will rank you 123 on the passport waitlist with an estimated 1.25% ownership of Epoch Island Vision Fund. You confirm that, and then you end up on the wait list. So this is all these names are not, they're just made up. So don't think that Balaji or Vitalik is on this yet, just yet. But basically imagine a people are trying to get into our country. This is your process of how you get into our country. And one thing that we've been thinking about deeply is if you just make it to where anybody can buy, you have no way of monitoring your population, who's in, who's coming out. There's like, it's just all hell breaks loose. It's really just a money thing. And while this definitely does have some money aspects to it, there are other ways to get into the island outside of capital, which we can explain in a bit. But basically, there's a ranking here, and if you want to, so let's just say there's 10 people on this. I think right now it says 10. Yeah. So what the Epoch Island passport holders would do is like, hey, we want to allow 10 new people to come through our borders, and then they would basically whitelist, allow list these 10 wallets, and then these 10 wallets now have, say, a predetermined amount of time to come in and basically convert their pledge into a passport, and now they have their passports. But what this allows us to do is really control supply and demand, if you will. What I also really like about this is instead of trying to find the perfect value of passports, like a bonding curve is great, but sometimes it'll price people out. Sometimes if you have like an auction system, it prices people out. So what this system houses is a pay what you want, pay what you can to join. But if you want to increase your ranking, you can make contributions that are not capital. So what you could do is like if you don't have a lot of money, but you want to get in, you're like, all right, guys, I want to get in. I know a lot about creating websites. I'm going to go create this cool Epoch Island community website. And in return, I want to get, 50,000 points that moves me up the wait list. So now people are adding contributions to get into Epoch Island. They're working for it if they will. Or you could essentially, throw some money and try to get in that way. It's up to you really. So this wait list, you can get notified when you're eligible. Maybe you put in an email, you can search for your wallet, and there's also click here and you could look at all the ways to move up the wait list. There's a voting section. So Marco, this is hopefully kind of what you were thinking here. So everything we just talked about, like there's cruise ships, onboarding box, healthcare, all of that. You could come here and you see the approval rating for it, how many people have voted for it, who's proposing it, and you could vote very simply. Yes, no. It's a just you could go through here and click, 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 and or you could click info and it could open up a whole, the whole full proposal to know all the ins and outs of the details. So what's really cool about this to me is like how quickly you can come and see what's going on in Epoch Island, what we're trying to build, what we're not trying to do, all in like a bird's eye view uh, here. Just a general stats. Oh, Marco, yeah. Did you want to give
I was just
any?
going to say, that's perfect. Now turn it into an app that works like Tinder does on my phone instead of a web page.
You really want to swipe, huh?
I
I
want to
got you.
swipe right for yes and swipe left for no and swipe up for I don't think you explained it well enough.
Okay, I like it. I'm a fan of it's a very efficient mechanism. I actually met my wife through a swiping app, so I'm a fan of that. It can get the job done. So just general stats, how much is in the Vision Fund? What's the average value of passports? What's the price of Epoch? Uh, what's your passport value? How many passport holders are there? And how many people do we currently have in the pledge area, the waiting room, to get in? Um, what's cool is again, if we approve 100 new passport holders, that's basically allowing this money to come into the Vision Fund, which is pretty cool. Uh, so all of this is everything we talked about up until now is very fun to think about. But how are we going to solve growth? How are we going to solve getting new people into Epoch Island? And there's grassroots level, door by door I go to every single one I can on Twitter. I hit up Twitter DMs. I hit up my personal network. Like I plan to do that myself. But what we started to do is like, well, what if there was a way to, in addition to all the other marketing related stuff, in addition to content creation, in addition to Twitter, in addition to all the standard stuff, what if there was a way to create to mobilize you guys on this call essentially and our islanders to make it worth your while to start to getting people into it? Because right now, like have you actually tried to invite your three friends? Like think about it right now, and maybe you've sent them a link. Maybe you're like, hey, Epoch Island's kind of cool, but have you actually like called them up and say, hey, I want to talk to you 30 minutes about Epoch Island and why I think you should join? Probably not, because well, one, we're still trying to get a clear product vision, but two, just the payoff is not that much. So what we're looking at doing is anybody you invite, you actually get 5%. Well, it could be 1%, 10%. Don't get too caught up in the percentage, but some percentage of their pledge goes to you for taking the time to properly onboard them and invite them. So you could come in here. So an example would be like you invite John, your friend, and you could see pretty quickly how this is very lucrative for somebody. Like I was even doing the math, like I could hopefully pay my mortgage or whatever if I just like try to recruit a new person every month or whatever it is. But if they came in here with 100 ETH pledge and then eventually that pledge turns into a passport getting paid like 5 ETH pretty immediately, you're probably going to spend some time talking to some higher profile people or higher quality contributors and builders in the space. So how this would work is you would enter the wallet of the person you want to onboard. You would this is all theoretical by the way, but you could maybe put a duration that it's active and you generate the code. The reason that we added this enter the wallet of the person you want to onboard is we didn't want this to turn into like a link shilling thing you see that it really devalues the value of an invitation if anybody can just like sling these things around like they're nothing. So this one you have to directly know who you're trying to invite. They have to know you. You have to know them. You don't have to, but like you're going to have to know at least an ETH address here. You generate the code. You could send that to them. And then if they go through and eventually get their passport, which is cool because you're incentivized to see them go all the way from pledge to passport, then you have a nice payday. And you could do this with any number of people. So you can generate the code. You can maybe see your code activity, like who hasn't pledged yet or who hasn't converted yet. And you could even claim your rewards here as well. So what I want to summarize, we just had a big call here. Let's bring it all together. The launch, we talked about that's where we're at. We talked about the end game, network state, diplomatic recognition. What we discussed today is basically kind of three primary things, the mid game, if you will. Digital passports allow us to create a product that we can now start onboarding people with. Benefits, start funding and growing these benefits that passports can receive, and then start growing the vision fund, 1 ETH by 1 ETH, 10 ETH by 10 ETH, 100 ETH by 100 ETH, slowly but surely growing that so that we can have the resources to build, and then eventually hit our end game. So hopefully this visual really connects all the dots of this call today. And that big question mark we had at the beginning of the call, there's still a question mark for sure, but hopefully it's a lot more clear than it was before. Take a pause here. Any uh things I just went through like kind of this DAP pretty quickly. I went through this summary pretty quickly. Anything that anybody would like to share, ask, or present based on the presentation today? Must mean we did a good job. I appreciate everybody who's stayed on this long. So, trying to wrapping things up now, the definition of the vision fund, the redemption. Um, so, what I would like to ask, if you guys still have some mental power here, just a last few questions. You can put this in the chat or speak up. If you could only choose one of the benefits presented today, which one would it be? Would anybody like to give a stab at if you could only choose one?
One of it's either the investment or the commercial. It's got to be one of those two.
Which one was what specifically were those? The
Well, one's the Vision Fund, out there, raising money, doing acquisitions, et cetera, growing
okay.
the economy that way. The other
Okay,
one is
okay.
building businesses that grow the economy.
Okay. Acquiring and building. Okay, I love it.
I'm the same, acquiring and building investment fund for other projects.
Okay, see, that's similar to Lai. I can't pronounce your name, and I'm gonna butcher it
Like
somewhere.
King.
Lai King, that's what I thought. I wanted to say D. I haven't seen you before, Lai King, so thank you for joining and giving some input here. Okay, well, I'm glad you guys like that because I think that resonates with what Moai Labs would like to do as well. Um, okay, if you were to make a pledge to the Vision Fund, what's a primary and secondary token you would want to use? These are questions I'm asking on my product interviews. So I just want to share with you guys, like at the end of my interviews, this is what I'm asking is like, you want ETH? You want a stablecoin? You want Tether? What do you want? Um, and then I was like, and then I asked people what would be the primary things we could do to increase your chances of pledging. What would be the primary reasons that would hold you back from making a pledge? So I'm getting these answers on my interviews. And then at the end, I asked, do you have any friends in your circle you feel would find this interesting? So my goal is every person I meet, they give me 3 friends to then go pursue those. I get 3 new meetings out of that. So that's just so you guys know my whole calendar right now. That's all. That's like I'm blocking off every week is trying to fill up these meetings. That is the Epoch Island meeting for today. I will also give you guys a sneak peek. This is actually live right now. We haven't opened up the password yet, but I think some of you guys would be excited, especially Houdini. I'm not sure if Houdini is still here or not, but we said we were going to do it. We did it basically. We created a stop getting wrecked DApp. We can go and create your positions, manage them, claim them. Um, it's in a very MVP state right now. And then Ben has also been he's been cleaning up and making this even better. But pretty cool to see the branding. This is basically the ITO DApp that we've been having, but now anybody can create ITO positions and add their own token, set their own liquidity fee, set your own start date, end date, whatever tokens you want. So I expect to see the link publicly shared in the next week or so.